The day Owen Calloway decided to buy an engagement ring was also the day his entire future came apart at the seams. He hadn't planned for that, obviously. Nobody plans for that. He'd walked into Hartwell & Sons Jewelers on Fifth Avenue that Thursday morning with his assistant Priya's research notes in his jacket pocket. 4 pages of diamond grading terminology he'd actually read the night before, which said something about how seriously he was taking this. And he'd walked out 40 minutes later with a ring that cost more than most people's houses and a very specific image in his head. Lauren's face when he opened the box. He was thinking about that face when he cut through Meridian Park. It was the long way back to his car. He knew that. But the October air had that particular sharpness to it, the kind that clears your head. And Owen had been living inside conference rooms and boardrooms and video calls for so long that he'd started to forget what outside felt like. So he walked. Past the fountain, past the dog walkers and the joggers, and the couple sharing a pretzel on a bench. He almost didn't see her. She was over by the oak trees near the east wall, the old ones, the ones with the massive roots that everybody tripped over. She was crouched down in front of a little girl, fixing the child's shoelace, laughing at something the little girl had said. The child was maybe 4 years old, with wild, dark curls that the wind kept blowing into her face. There was a boy too, same height, same curls, chasing a red ball about 10 feet away with the kind of single-minded focus that only small children and golden retrievers manage. Owen stopped walking. He didn't know why he stopped. He just did. The way you stop when your brain registers something before you do. The woman stood up, and the little girl immediately grabbed her hand, and the woman laughed again. That specific laugh, the one that went a little breathless at the end, and Owen felt the blood drain out of his face. Sylvie Marchand, who he hadn't seen in 4 years and 3 months, who he had thought about every single day for the first year, and then told himself, finally, that he had to stop. Who he had loved with a completeness that had frightened him when he was 32. And still frightened him a little when he thought about it now. Which was why he mostly tried not to. She hadn't seen him yet. She was looking down at her daughter, at the little girl, pointing at something in the grass, probably a bug, because the little girl immediately screamed and jumped, and Sylvie caught her and they both laughed. The boy came running over. He crashed into Sylvie's legs, wrapped both arms around her knees, nearly took her down. She steadied herself and scooped him up, and he pressed his cheek against hers, and Owen watched this tableau like he was watching it through glass. Twin children. They had to be twins. Same age, same height, same curls. The ring box in Owen's pocket felt like it weighed 20 pounds. He should have turned around. He knew he should have turned around. He had a 3 o'clock call, and a dinner reservation, and a woman waiting for him who had done nothing wrong. He knew all of that. He turned around anyway. He made it approximately 6 steps before he heard it. Mama. The boy's voice clear as a bell. That man keeps looking at us. Owen closed his eyes. Theo. Sylvie's voice. God, he'd forgotten exactly what it sounded like. Don't point. I'm not pointing. I'm looking. That's the same thing. A pause. Then, quieter, in a completely different tone, and this was when Owen knew. This was the exact moment. Sylvie said, very softly, "Oh." He turned back around. She was standing perfectly still, Theo still in her arms, her daughter pressed against her leg, her eyes on Owen with an expression he didn't have a name for, something that was either relief or terror or both. She looked the same. She looked completely different. There were things in her face that hadn't been there before. Not age exactly, more like weight, like someone who had been carrying something heavy for a long time, and had just gotten very good at making it look effortless. Owen walked back toward her. He didn't plan what to say. He hadn't planned any of this, so it seemed consistent. "Hi," he said. She exhaled. "Hi." The little girl tugged at Sylvie's dress. "Mama, who is that?" Sylvie didn't answer right away. Theo was watching Owen with the direct, assessing stare that small children deploy without mercy. "You have sad eyes," Theo said. "Theo," Sylvie said. "He does." Theo was unrepentant. "Like Max when we forget to take him to the dog park." Owen said, before he could stop himself. "Who's Max, our dog?" the little girl said importantly. "He's a beagle. His full name is Maxwell Theodore Marchand, but we only use all of it when he's in trouble." "Clara," Sylvie said, and there was something fragile in her voice. Something just barely held together. Can you and Theo go look at the fountain for a minute? Don't go past the bench. Why? Because I said so. Clara considered this, apparently decided it was sufficient, and grabbed her brother's sleeve. Theo climbed down from Sylvie's arms with a certain dignified reluctance and let his sister drag him toward the fountain. He looked over his shoulder once, still evaluating Owen, before Clara said something that made him forget about everything else. Sylvie and Owen stood facing each other. There? Owen started. Yes, she said. How old? 4. She wrapped her arms around herself. It had gotten colder. 4 in February. Owen did the math. The math wasn't complicated. He'd done it in approximately 2 seconds, and he was fairly certain she'd known he would. Sylvie, I know, you should have. I know. Her voice cracked on it, just slightly. She pressed her lips together. I know, Owen. I know I should have. I tried. I tried 3 times, and your mother, she stopped. Owen went very still. My mother, he said. Not a question. Sylvie looked at him. There was something in her eyes that was close to pity. She called me back. Both times I called the house. She told me you'd gotten engaged, she said. Sylvie paused, choosing her words carefully, the way people do when they're trying to be fair to someone they're furious at. She said it would be cruel to disrupt your life, that you'd moved on, and that what she was about to tell me was in my best interest. And then another pause, she offered me money. The park kept going around them. Joggers jogged. A dog barked somewhere. Owen's chest felt like something was sitting on it. How much? He said. Owen, how much did she offer you? Sylvie looked away. 250,000. Did you take it? She looked back at him. Sharp. What do you think? He didn't answer because it was a stupid question, and they both knew it. Sylvie had grown up in a 1-bedroom apartment in Trenton with her mother and her aunt, and a sense of self-sufficiency that she wore like armor. She would have hung up the phone. I did the 3rd time, she said, and he felt the ground shift. Not from her. I contacted your office. I left a message with someone named Priya. She was very kind. She said she'd pass it on. Sylvie's expression flickered. I never heard back. Priya had been with him for 11 months. She'd started in November, 4 years ago. She would have been new. She would have been navigating whatever system his mother had quietly, systematically constructed around Owen after the breakup. The one he hadn't known about because he'd been too wrecked to look closely at anything. She didn't tell me, Owen said. He could hear how hollow it sounded. I know, Sylvie said. I figured that out eventually. She glanced toward the fountain. Clara was telling Theo something with great animation. Theo was crouching down to look at something on the ground. I made peace with it. I built something good. The kids they're wonderful, Owen. They're so much more than I deserve sometimes. I'm not telling you any of this to blow up your life. My life is already. He stopped. She looked at him. I was coming from a jewelry store, he said. It was a strange thing to say. He said it anyway. Something moved across her face. Oh, I was going to ask Lauren tonight. Sylvie nodded slowly. Her jaw was very tight. Lauren she's been good for me. He heard himself say it and hated how it sounded like a performance review. She's steady. She's kind. She doesn't ask a lot of me. Sylvie was quiet for a long moment. Is that what you want? She asked finally. Someone who doesn't ask a lot. He didn't answer that either. The truth was that in the last 4 years, Owen had built exactly the life his mother had always wanted for him. Callaway Industries was worth 3 times what it had been when he'd taken over from his father. He had a penthouse in Midtown and a house in Connecticut, and a jet that was more efficient than commercial for the amount he traveled. He had Lauren, who was warm and well-bred and completely at home in the world he'd grown up in, who laughed at the right things and wore the right things, and had never once made him feel like he was too much or not enough. He had not, in 4 years, felt anything the way he felt things when he was with Sylvie Marchand. I should go, Sylvie said. She said it the way people say things when they don't quite mean them. I'm glad I'm not, he said. She stopped. Okay, she said carefully. You're not what? Fine, he looked at her. You were about to say you're glad I'm fine. I'm not. I haven't been fine in 4 years. I've been functional, which is a different thing entirely. Sylvie looked at him for a long moment. The wind moved through the oak trees. Owen, she said softly. I have 2 children, he said, in this park, right now. His voice came out strange, slightly unsteady. I have. Clara and Theo, and I didn't know. I didn't know, and they're 4 years old, and they apparently named their dog after legal documents. He paused. Theodore. His middle name is Theodore? A reluctant, almost smile crossed her face. I wasn't thinking about that. You named our son after me. I was hormonal and sentimental, and I'm not sure I'd defend it now. I like it, he said. He said it very quietly. She looked down. When she looked back up, her eyes were bright. Not crying. Sylvie never cried in public. She'd told him once she considered it a personal policy. But close. What are you saying? I don't know yet, he said honestly. I need about 30 minutes to figure out what I'm saying, but I know I'm not leaving this park and going home to plan a proposal. She nodded. Her breath came out a little shaky. Mama, Clara's voice from the fountain, impatient. Theo put his shoe in the water. Of course he did, Sylvie said under her breath, and then she raised her voice. Theo Marchand, what did we say about the fountain? You said don't go past the bench. Theo called back, unrepentant. The bench is right there. Owen laughed. He hadn't expected to laugh. It came out of him before he could stop it, and it was real. The first completely real thing he'd felt all day. Sylvie looked at him, and there was something in her expression that he recognized from years ago, from 100 moments in a life they'd been building together, before it got dismantled. She looked like herself. He followed her to the fountain. That was the decision, though he didn't fully understand it yet. The small, quiet choice to walk those 12 steps and crouch down next to a soaking wet 4-year-old who squinted up at him and said, "You have sad eyes, but you laugh like Dad would," and rearranged something fundamental in Owen Calloway's chest. Theo had said, like Dad would, because that's what he'd been told, that his dad wasn't here anymore. Owen would learn this later, when Sylvie explained the words she'd used. Not dead, she'd been careful about that, just not with us right now, a door she'd deliberately left ajar. He didn't know yet what to do with the specific ache of that. He took Theo's shoe off and wrung it out against the side of the fountain. "Do you have another pair?" he asked. "In the bag," Clara said, pointing at Sylvie's tote on the nearby bench, with the air of someone accustomed to managing logistics. "The blue ones." Owen retrieved the bag. He found the shoes. He put them on Theo, who sat still for this with remarkable patience and continued evaluating Owen the way a CEO evaluates a new acquisition, with curiosity and zero sentimentality. "You know my mama?" Theo said. "I do," Owen said. "From before?" "From before." Theo chewed this over. "Max doesn't like strangers," he said, "but I can tell him you're okay." "I'd appreciate that," Owen said. He called Lauren that evening. It was the hardest call he'd ever made, and also, somehow, the most honest conversation he'd had in recent memory, which told him something uncomfortable about the relationship he'd been in. He didn't mention Sylvie. He mentioned, as clearly and kindly as he could, that he'd been planning to ask her something that morning, and that in the course of the day he'd understood, with a clarity that felt almost physical, that he wasn't in a position to mean it. Lauren was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, she didn't cry either. She said she wasn't completely surprised. She said she'd been sensing something for months, a distance that she'd been telling herself was work stress. She said she wished him well. She meant it, which made it worse and also, in a strange way, better. He sat with his phone in his hand for a while after she hung up. Then he called his mother. Eleanor Calloway answered on the second ring because she always answered on the second ring, never the first. Something about not seeming eager. "Owen, sweetheart, how did it go?" She said no, Owen said. A beat. "What?" Lauren said. "I didn't ask her." He kept his voice level. He'd had 6 hours to think about this conversation, and he'd decided to stay level. "I need you to tell me about the calls you intercepted from Sylvie Marchand 4 years ago." Silence. Not the silence of someone who didn't know what he was talking about. The silence of someone calculating. "I don't," his mother started. "Mom." He said it quietly. No anger, no heat. He'd burned through all of that in the cab home and had arrived at something colder and more useful. "I have 2 children. Their names are Clara and Theo. They're 4 years old. I met them today." He paused. "So I really need you to tell me what happened." The silence stretched. When his mother spoke again, her voice had changed. Smaller, less certain. "I was protecting you," she said. "I know that's what you thought. She wasn't right for you. Her background, her Her background, Owen repeated. Owen, her background. Mom, I want you to hear how that sounds. Another silence. Longer this time. I didn't know she was pregnant, his mother said finally. It came out differently than the rest, quieter, undefended. I want you to know that. When she called the first time, I didn't know. I thought she was trying to get back in, and by the time she called again I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. I genuinely thought. Her voice broke. I didn't know about the children, but you paid her to go away. I tried to. She wouldn't take it. A pause. She made her feelings clear. That sounds right, Owen. His mother's voice, stripped of its usual composure, sounded older. Tired. I've made mistakes. I know I have. I don't want to lose you. Then maybe, he said carefully. Stop trying to architect my life. He visited Sylvie's apartment the following Saturday. She lived in Brooklyn now, in a building with good light and a broken intercom that she'd apparently reported to the super 4 times. There was a corkboard in the hallway, covered in children's drawings. Clara's tended toward elaborate scenes with labeled characters. Theo's were mostly large abstract shapes that he named things like Scared Rock and The Tree That's Thinking. Owen stood in front of the corkboard for a long moment. He made that one in October, Sylvie said from behind him, pointing to a large orange oval. He said it was a pumpkin thinking about being a pie. Existential, Owen said. He's going through a phase. She handed him coffee. Their fingers touched briefly on the mug and neither of them said anything about it. They talked for 3 hours. Not about the relationship, not yet. About the kids, about Clara's obsession with space, and her plan to be an astronaut who is also a veterinarian who is also possibly a chef. About Theo's 4 best friends at preschool, and his very serious opinion that the color orange was underappreciated. About the night Sylvie had gone into labor alone because her mother was in Philadelphia and she'd called a car and gotten herself there and had only allowed herself to be scared after. Once it was over and they were all fine. About the names. I was going to use Owen, Sylvie said very quietly, but I thought it might be too much to carry. And Theodore? She turned her mug in her hands. It was always a name I'd loved. I told myself it wasn't about you. A pause. I was lying to myself. I'm glad you did, he said. She looked up. Both things, he said. I'm glad you named him that, and I'm glad you were there that night, even if I wasn't. Because you. He stopped. He started over. You built something extraordinary, Sylvie. On your own, in conditions I would have. He shook his head. I would have had 15 assistants and a night nurse and I still would have been overwhelmed. You did it with a broken intercom and a beagle. She laughed. The breathless one. His chest did something inconvenient. Don't idealize it, she said. There were weeks where we ate cereal for dinner 4 nights in a row, and I cried in the bathroom after they went to sleep. That doesn't change what I said. She looked at him for a moment. What do you want, Owen? I want to know them, he said. It came out without hesitation. Whatever that looks like, whatever pace you set, I want them to know who their father is. I want Theo to introduce me to Max. I want to hear about the space veterinarian chef. He paused. And I want to know if I want to know if what we were, if any part of that is, don't ask that yet, she said. Okay, ask it later. Ask it when I've had time to. She stopped. When it doesn't feel like I'm still finding my footing. Okay, he said again, later. He met Max that afternoon. Max the beagle was, as advertised, suspicious of strangers. He stood in the kitchen doorway and barked twice, very officially, and then allowed himself to be bribed with a piece of Theo's apple slice. Theo stood beside Owen watching this with an expression of profound satisfaction. I told him you were okay, Theo said. He believed you, Owen said. Theo nodded. He usually does. Then, simply, without build-up, are you going to stay? Owen looked at this small person who had his jaw and his mother's eyes, and a tendency to name his feelings like weather systems, and he felt something slot into place with a quietness that was almost shocking given how long it had been missing. Yes, he said. Theo seemed to consider the weight of this. Good, he said. Clara says you have to build the Lego set with her first because she has seniority. Does she mean? She means she's 7 minutes older than me. Theo's expression suggested he found this entire system unjust. She brings it up constantly. Owen heard Clara in the living room. already dragging the box out from under the coffee table, narrating to herself about structural integrity. He heard Sylvie in the kitchen, the sound of dinner starting, something that smelled like garlic and something warm. Max had relocated to Owen's feet and was apparently reconsidering his earlier position on strangers. Through the window of a Brooklyn apartment on a Saturday afternoon, with children's drawings on the corkboard and a dog leaning against his ankle, and the voice of a woman he had never stopped loving. Coming from the next room, Owen Calloway understood, with the quiet, unargumentative certainty of someone who has finally found the thing he'd been looking for in all the wrong places, that this was where he was supposed to be. He went to help Clara with the Legos,